Today's story was written by Reddit user SwiftHound. A discussion raged deep down, below the deepest oceans, inside the dwarven capital's grandest halls. A discussion in only name, argument, or perhaps a verbal melee might describe it all better. In the grand hall of discovery, all hell was breaking loose. The verbal assault that would have made the strongest elf warrior climb up a tree in terror was being targeted toward a single individual. The level of noise was perhaps acceptable at an orc family gathering, where a son had just murdered his father at the dinner table. The receiver of this abuse was none the wiser, as he had prepared by rupturing his eardrums beforehand. Madness and genius are very close to each other, and just perhaps overlap each other sometimes. Eventually, once most of the cabinet were tired from screaming, or passed out from nearly screaming their lungs out, he drank a small healing potion to restore his ears. He wished he had not done so yet, for a fair bit of screams still echoed. A pair of earmuffs were enough to quiet it down to acceptable levels. The dwarf looked to his left and up towards the towering human suspended in a crystal. "Can I fucking talk before you slime beards scream my hairy ass out of this hall?" Everyone's patience has a limit. This dwarf's limit was 5 minutes. Excellent for his race by all accounts, though he had been drinking other substances than just health potions. The room quieted by a good bit, enough for the speech amplification array to talk over the last voices of dissent. "Yes, it's a human. No, I am not a fake bearded traitor. No, I will not be executing her right here and now to show my allegiance. For the mind's sake, get a hold of yourselves. No, I have not been illegally experimenting on other intelligent races again. Yes, I have this human's agreement to be a part of this. No, I did not freeze her in a crystal for laughs. I did it to hopefully save her from hearing this shit you're spouting. And for fuck's sake, I've been in these very halls researching and coming up with new avenues of enriching us all for the last few centuries. My left foot is almost completely stone these days. And this, my screamy friends, is something very, very important I've managed to figure out." The dwarf continued to speak, mostly unopposed now that he had gotten a few words in. "Humans aren't special by racial feats, as you all know. Sure, they can get up there in years with magic, and their warriors and scholars are respectable, but they're more akin to beasts than other races. They were not created from magic crashing into our world. They evolved from lesser beasts. We dwarfs were born of mountains, the elves from forests, the orcs from mushrooms. Magic shaped the rest of us into what we are today, but the humans simply were not. But that does not mean magic cannot shape individual humans. Our bodies are inscribed with uncountable runes of immense complexity the moment we are born into this world. But the humans remain untouched and unchanged. They never truly take magic into their being. They store it, sure, but they aren't a part of the magic. I, Droogle the perhaps insane, have fixed that fault. I have given this human, Annie, a connection to magic unlike any human ever has been blessed with." Droogle pulled out a small hammer from his pocket and hit the crystal on its side, sending cracks flying across it. The crystal shattered and the human, Annie, dropped onto first her knees, then her face. The soft mattress prepared beforehand made the experience only slightly better. Annie, with great surprise and betrayal on her face, turned to Droogle. "I believe we were in the middle of a discussion on how I did not want to be frozen in a crystal for this. Could you explain to me how I ended up inside the crystal and in front of the judge, jury, and executioner of your kind?" "Annie, don't worry about it. The crystal was important for the aesthetic and the health of your ears. Now come on. No way out now. Just as we practiced, lass." Droogle's smile contrasted well with Annie's scowl. A brick wall appeared in the middle of the hall. "Now, Annie, hit the wall." Annie took a pair of knucklebusters and hit the wall, causing insignificant damage to it. "Now activate the first set of runes and hit it again." Annie hit her right shoulder with her left hand, and runes spread out from it like snakes, covering Annie from head to toe. The runes flashed a brilliant yellow before dimming. Annie loaded up a proper haymaker and struck the wall, shattering it and sending pieces flying towards the crowd. The noise level was briefly heightened as insults had to be thrown out at Droogle. As you can see, Annie, a young warrior still in training, was able to manage a feat of strength comparable to high-class adventurers. "Now, Annie, next set of runes." The left shoulder got hit and red runes snaked out, encircling the yellow ones. They tightened against the previous set of runes and branched out like tree branches. Another wall appeared in the hall, this one made of shining metal, polished to perfection. The runes pulsed along Annie's heart as she took a better stance. A quick jab from Annie made the wall buckle and dent on the opposite side. A few more hits aimed at the same place and a hole was produced. This feat is on par with the greatest of our heroes, the ones blessed by magic to have insurmountable strength, the power to kill a steel dragon with naught but bare fists. As the show was becoming interesting, threats of violence simmered down. All the spectators were in fear of Droogle's monster, shocked by the destruction of such a fine piece of steel, or excited to see where Droogle, the definitely insane, was taking the show. In any case, Droogle was given the quiet to speak his final command in theatrical fashion. "Now, Annie, activate the runes of Midgard, Nidavellir, and Asgard. Complete the tree of Yggdrasil. Let the gods sow their strength into your mortal coil. Feel the roots of the world tree sink into your bones. See the leaves and branches grow from your soul. You have the power." Annie struck her fists against each other, and blue runes grew from them. They filled the gaps between the red and yellow, moving constantly even after their light faded. She stretched her body back as far as it could before once more striking her fists together. Green runes grew and became leaves of every tree in the realm. They danced along with her breathing. With trembling hands, she brought her left onto her forehead and her right to her heart. She gently placed her fists on her body and the runes parted from her flesh. They grew and snaked around as Annie's body compressed into a fetal position. The yellow and red runes lifted her body from the ground and grew around her, shrouding Annie from view. Blue runes flowed at such speeds they looked like water running across the growing mass of runes. The creature with Annie inside it stood up from the ground. Green rune leaves flowed like hair across the creature. Its face was a swirl of runes. The features were barely recognizable. It was tall, thrice that of Annie herself. And now, the final piece of the show. Droogle conjured a large block on top of a small pillar. This one made of mithril, the mithril that had gone missing from the king and queen's treasury just the day before. The rune creature stared at the mass of indestructible metal that had been purified to perfection, and tended to with more love and care than any dwarf child by their mother. The creature's fists grew into massive forge hammers before striking enough mithril to make an entire kingdom rich for centuries. The creature's hands were stopped with a dull clang. It did not stop pushing. The runes glowed brighter as magic was poured into them. A sound that should never have been heard was created. Mithril, the material that made dragons and demons fear the people carrying them, was at its limit. It screamed in agony as it buckled bit by bit. It only took an instant as the runes flashed blindingly bright in the dim hall. As the rune monster fell on its back, the runes withering away and revealing Annie lying on the ground. The block of mithril was beyond all recognition. It had been mangled. The hall was silent as Droogle fed a dozen blue potions to Annie, before another dozen red ones. Her breathing started again, but she did not wake. As you can see, I have made Annie into a masterwork of dwarven engineering. The humans are, by far, the most enchantable material in this realm. Give my apologies to the Majesties for stealing the mithril. Droogle quickly put Annie on his shoulders and ran as fast as his stone leg could carry him. He knew he would have to hide for a few months for cooler heads to prevail. Droogle was glad to have practiced the moment with Annie. Something like this just wouldn't have been the same without just a small dramatic speech.